Hi everyone, Bren here. Welcome to my channel, Gigi, the garden girl. And I've got a massive smile on my face. And that is because I am really excited. It is time to start sowing seeds again. We here in New South Wales, Australia only have a few weeks left of summer. Autumn is just around the corner. It's now time to start the process of growing those cold hardy vegetables and flowers that you'll be able to harvest middle to mid-autumn all the way through winter until springtime. There are so many crops that you can start sowing the seeds for now, but I thought in this video let's keep things a little bit simple and go through 5 cold hardy vegetables that we can get growing this week. I've got my seeds ready. I'm trying to get better with the thumbnail, so there you go, there's my thumbnail. I'm actually under the shade because it's so hot outside. I've checked the temperature, it's saying it's only 29 degrees and humidity 42%, but oh, it's pretty intense out there. And then I'm thinking maybe I'm getting a hot flush or something, I don't know. Before we get into the list, I did want to mention 2 things. Number 1 is that you may notice that all the seed packets are from the same company. This video is not sponsored by them, just happens to be a seed company that has nice pictures on the front. I actually source my seeds from many different Australian companies, all of which have been fantastic. Great germination. I will list them in the description below. Some of them sell seeds that are more suited to home gardeners, so there's less seeds in the pack, but that also means the price is a lot cheaper. I'll mention them in the list. And second of all, if you are a new gardener, I want to explain briefly what a cold hardy vegetable is. These are plants that can tolerate the colder weather. In fact, they actually thrive in colder weather. They can also tolerate a light frost. Here in New South Wales, I mean, we have been pretty fortunate over the last few years where we haven't had any heavy frosts. So a light frost, these grow well out in the garden, but if you are getting a heavier frost, it's important to put a frost cloth over them. You can make a little mini hoop house as well. Yeah, just wanted to mention that. Okay, let's get into it now. We're going to start off today with beetroot, which is a very versatile root vegetable, and it's actually quite nutrient rich. For example, it's a good source of vitamin C as well as iron. Did you know that as well as being able to eat this part, which is the enlarged taproot, you can actually eat the foliage of the beetroot as well? You can use it in many different dishes. For example, it can be roasted, added to salads, even using it in baking, as well as preserves like beetroot relish. There are many different varieties of beetroot out there, some really interesting looking heirlooms which I have grown in the past, and I may even throw in a few seeds into the beds over the next few weeks. One that comes to mind is an Italian heirloom called Chioggi beets. I hope I pronounced that right. I'll put the name up on the screen. Oh, it has the most unusual looking stripes, and I really think it's a great one to grow if you're trying to encourage children to get into the veggie patch. This particular variety is new to me. It's called Moulin Rouge, and on the back of the seed pack it does mention that it's a great one to grow in containers because it doesn't get too large and it's relatively quick growing. I think it says 10 to 12 weeks. So I'm going to actually do a bit of an experiment with this. I'm going to grow some in a pot as well as growing them in a raised bed and just kind of compare the two of them. It's just a bit of trialing out in the garden, but I am curious to see what happens and I will give you an update on that. Next up is Bok Choy, also known as Pak Choy. Now, this vegetable has been around in Chinese cuisine for thousands of years, and I completely understand its popularity. Not only is it so easy, I sound so excited, but I am because I love growing this. Not only is it super easy to grow from seed, but it also just is a very giving plant. You can actually use the cut and come again method on it, where you harvest the outer leaves and the plant continues to grow on the inside. So it can be in your patch for quite a long time and you get so much from it. It's very productive. Oh, and also it tastes delicious too. The stems have a really nice crisp texture, and I love adding bok choy into stir fries, for example. But probably my favorite way to use this vegetable in the kitchen is to add it into my chicken noodle soup recipe or dish that I make every winter time quite regularly, probably on a weekly basis. And I have to say, by the end of winter, my family get a bit sick of it. So there has been a bit of a break. I'll probably start making this again in a couple of months, that dish, and I'll be able to add some fresh food, fresh bok choy from the veggie patch. Next we have broccoli. So this list is in no particular order because I would say if it was ranked from 1 to 10, broccoli would probably get the number one spot. And I have a reason for that, which is because if you grow your own broccoli, you get to enjoy the entire plant, because not only is this head part, which are packed full of flower buds that are just unopened, not only is that edible, but the stem is edible and the leaves too. And my favorite part of broccoli is actually the stem. It is so delicious. Oh my goodness. And when you buy this vegetable in the supermarkets, they tend to not make that stem available to purchase, or the leaves for that matter too. So yeah, that is why I think making room in your garden for broccoli is a wonderful one to choose. Now, traditionally with broccoli, some older varieties, they can take up quite a large bit of space. Off the top of my head, I usually would plant them about 50 centimeters apart. But I have some good news for small space gardeners. I have noticed over the years there's a lot of other varieties now coming out that are a bit more compact and don't take up as much room. And I was thinking I may have a few of those seeds in my box. I might actually try and grow some of them in a container just to see how it does in a smaller space, and I reckon they'll go all right. Many of you out there who are avid home gardeners have been digging around your veggie patch for a number of years know about this little secret. But if you are a new gardener, I've got a bit of news for you. Did you know that during winter time it doesn't have to be really dull in the garden? You can actually add a little pop of colour. These, which are called Silverbeet bright lights, or I also like to call them rainbow chard, and look at the colour of those stems. I have grown these for years here, and they have done wonderfully in my garden here in New South Wales, Australia during the winter months. The stems just add a beautiful, vibrant rainbow of colours in the patch, and it's a pleasure to see them on a dreary, overcast day. I have noticed that this plant seems to be able to tolerate a bit of partial shade, which actually works to your advantage when it is growing throughout winter and coming into spring. When spring starts to heat up, if you put it in a partial shade area, the plant seems to last a lot longer. It doesn't go to seed, start to flower and die back as quick as other rainbow chard plants which I put into full sun. So yeah, it's worth kind of experimenting a bit in the garden. Don't put all your crop in one area. If you have a place that you really struggle to grow anything in because it just doesn't get enough sun, pop a few of these plants in, and you never know, you could get an abundant harvest from these plants over a number of months. Another veg to try is turnips, and I think these get a bit of a bad rap. In my opinion, I believe that is because they are often overcooked, and when that happens, the flavour can get a bit bitter. So if you cook these correctly, I reckon they are delicious. They can be quite sweet with a slight earthy flavour. I think the key when it comes to growing your own turnips is to harvest them when they are on the smaller size, because if you let them get too big, they can get a little bit tough and bitter. So I think if you know when to harvest them, that will really make the most out of this crop. And oh my goodness, if you don't fancy growing these more traditional ones, there are an array of really unusual varieties out there which I have grown in the past. Some really lovely Japanese varieties, and this one which almost looks like a carrot, doesn't it? Oh, really fun to grow. I love trying out different preserving methods when it comes to the food that I grow here in my cottage garden. And one unusual way, or less common way, that I preserve turnips is I pickle them, which sounds a little bit odd, but they do taste really fantastic. Well, if you don't really fancy that, a couple of other ways that you can use up turnips is you can grate them up, add them to coleslaws in the raw form, or you know, the more traditional way that I think every Irish mother well, when I was growing up, lots of people did it like this. You just boil them and mash them, maybe mash them up with some carrots. It's really worth doing it that way, simple and full of flavour. I hope you enjoyed going through those edibles. In this video I was actually also planning on showing you my seed starting setup and what equipment I use. A lot of it is budget friendly, eco-friendly, and I was hoping to share a few tips with you on how to sow seeds, you know, maybe get the process started, but of course I ran out of time. I'm hoping maybe next week, if I plan this video out a bit better, we'll be able to go through all of that. If you would like to see more from the list of edibles that are cold hardy, just let me know in the comments and I'll do a few more next week. Anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful 7 days ahead. Thanks for sticking around and happy gardening.